Okay, so I'm gonna do a video about my Odium deck. I've been playing it for a few weeks now and have a decent amount of experience with it. Still technically not reading cards properly, ignoring that. So I think first of all I'll just do a quick overview of how the deck works for the people who don't know how the deck works. So basically when you ride to grade 2 from your ride deck, you essentially reveal your grade 3 and then you get a token set order called Destined Timepiece, which basically has a gauge, right? And your grade 2 just put something in it. But the main point of the deck is so with the actual Vanguard itself, you have lots of abilities. So the first one's Cont. So during your turn, all your front row rear guards get plus 5k for each of your Distorted Banes in your Regius gauge. Right, which we'll get back to later. And then when it attacks, you can Soul Blast one. You either put a card from your hand or rear guard circle into your Regius gauge and gets plus 1 drive. Or gets triple drive, rather, until end of turn. And then if you, at the end of the battle, you attack, if you have 5 or more cards in your Regius gauge, you can activate your Divine Skill, which gives you an extra turn, but you skip the ride phase, the main phase, and you get -1 drive. So essentially, all the trigger stuff resets for both players, and you just have less drive. You don't get energy because you get energy in your ride phase, but you do get to draw a card. Yeah, so that's sort of the whole point of it, is to get to 5 and have an extra turn. Yeah, so that's the basic idea of a deck. The other part that's also important for a deck is your Distorted Bane, which is a regular order, which you can play it if you have Vanguard or Liael. So essentially, once you're on grade 3, you can play it. It is grade 3 anyway, so double restrictions, I guess. But yeah, you can, when you play it, you may Soul Charge 1, and you put a face up in your Regius gauge. And when it's put into your regress gauge, you draw a card, choose one of your Vanguards, and give it 10k. I think when I was first playing my deck, I was skipping over the draw a card part, which is really dumb of me. But yeah. So generally, just how to get to 5. If you play 2 of these, so in your first grade free turn and your second grade free turn, you'll have 5 Regius gauge and you'll be able to have your extra turn. And you get 1 from your grade 2. You'll get 2 from your 2 Distorted Banes, and you get 1 in each of your grade 3 turns. That's generally how you want to function the deck. Okay, so also to just go over resources. Soul Blast wise, like Soul wise, you basically don't actually care about Soul too much, as the only thing you have what does Soul or Soul Blast is your Vanguard. You're not going to do it that much either, like maybe like 4 times in a game. And depending on how long it goes, maybe just 3. And then you get Soul from playing your Distorted Banes. But you don't have to if you don't want to, so you don't have to. But yeah, so like I think Soul, you're pretty much good. You don't actually need to worry about it. You can spend a bit more from like Soul Cyclers, but generally it's fine. Counterblast is also mostly fine, as you only really need 2 Counterblast for your second grade free turn, and any other you have is just, you can just spend it and not care. Yeah, and card wise, I find the deck does actually have quite a few ways of getting card advantage. So it's actually, you don't need to worry too much about cards. You do still want cyclers, but generally you can miss a turn of not discarding a cycler and not be too far, you wouldn't be far behind at all. Because essentially you're drawing 1 card on your grade 2 turn. All the cards you lose from your on attack skill, you're gaining back in the form of extra drive. And yeah, so resource-wise, that's it. So going into the actual deck itself, so I don't have every card I need. For example, I only have 3 Anachronous dragons. I am getting another one of someone probably this weekend, I hope. But yeah, just going over units, obviously, so we have 3 more of your Vanguard. I currently only have 3 Steam Gunner Tizcars and 2 Leminers. Basically, so 2 Soul Cycles and 3 Energy Cyclers. Based on my experience with the cards, I think I might try to get a 6 Cycler of some sort. I'm not too worried about it that much. I think I'd probably rather just go 3 and 3, but they're also really expensive right now. So I might be able to get a box or 2 of BT1 though, to get Tizcars, and the Soul Cycles getting reprinted in the Korokoro set. It's basically a reprint slash crossover set with like 5 different things in it, and they each have a bunch of reprints in it, including Soul Cyclers, which comes in May though, which is quite far away. Just to go over, before we go to units, we just go triggers. I got 8 crits, including the hit crits. 3 draws, only 2 effect draws, as I actually only have 2, unfortunately. And then I've got the purple over trigger. I mostly went with this because I like the idea of every time you attack, you have an open rearguard slot to play something on. So I do like the idea of like you don't have to play over anything. You're not losing cards when you use its effect, or it's net positive. Anyway, so I kind of like it. And it gives you a 4th attack in a turn. Otherwise, you're just limited to 3 attacks. As for everything else, the bread and butter of the deck, so we have Anachronous Dragon. So he is basically a form of card advantage, where if he's in your gauge zone, at the beginning of your battle phase, you can counterblast 1, choose a card from drop, put it into your register gauge, and then put this into this to rearguard. So he's why you're using that 2 Soul Blast, or that 2 Counter Blast during your 2nd grade free turn, as usually he will be your target. Essentially, when you're binding a rearguard, this guy will be your target usually, and so your 1st grade free turn you'll bind him, and then your 2nd grade free cool him out, and then on your extra turn you cool him out again. Yeah, and so he's basically, so you Counter Blast get a card effectively. And you get potentially, because he puts cards from drop into register, you can get bonus effect from them as well, which we'll get to later. And he also has the ability, when he attacks, if you're the Liael and you're as a Vanguard, it gets 5k power, and if you're 3 more register, you can Energy Blast 2 and retire a card. You're not always going to be using that, but also that is the only Energy Blast the deck currently uses. So your Steam Gun Tizcars are free, basically. Which actually might be why I might actually probably prefer 4. Probably go 4-2 for cyclers, just because like you're literally not using any other energy. But that also means if there's another card you like that has energy, you can just play it almost for free. Then we have this grade 2 guy here. He is when you play him, if you have a Regius gauge, you can counterblast 1, draw a card, and Soul Charge. And then if you're 3 or more Regius gauge, he gets boost. I kind of like him, I also don't, as, again, you don't really need the soul, and counterblasting to draw probably isn't what I'd want to spend Counterblast on. There's better options, but I do like how you basically, when you go to grade 2, you can play him, attack with him, and call him back to boost the next turn. Yeah, so not completely against him, but I do feel maybe we could use some better grade 1s. Like, something else. I do think the deck needs more boosters. Yes, I think if anything, they did spoil for BT7 essentially a 13k booster that can get your distorted, like essentially your normal orders from drop or damage, which honestly I'd probably just replace this guy with. That way it gives me a 13k booster instead of a 10. And there's another way to get your distorted bones. I mean, I've got this guy who's quite simple. Essentially, he gets, when he's either placed on rear guard or put into your biggest gauge, you can choose one unit that gets 5k. I do like his ability, but at the same time, I don't see... I'm not sure how useful the 5k is. So he's basically, when I get more copies of other cards, he's probably who I'm going to drop first. So I'll probably drop him before the Colossus guy. And then I've got one of each of the Dark State for multi-cards, multi-nation cards from Festival, like last year's Festival collection. Because literally that's all I have, I have one of each. So the Dragon Empire Dark State one, essentially, when you play him on hand up and during battle phase, Soul Charge, it gets 5k power, then you may counterblast and either retire a grade 2 or greater rear guard for your opponents, or choose a grade 2 or less card from Soul and call it to rear guard. It's basically, it's a way to get Soul and also then just call something out if you need to, or retire something. I think a retire part isn't particularly useful because your Anachronous Dragon just does it as well. So I think you mostly play for a second ability. Even the Brand Gate Dark States one has, when you play it, look at number of cards from top of your deck equal to a number of set orders plus 1. So for our deck is always going to be 2. Even more. Put a card from end to soul, and if you're looking more than 2. So essentially, if you look more than just the top 1, you then shuffle the deck. So you can't essentially manipulate what's on top of your deck with it. And then you can counterblast, either you get a grade 2 or greater unit into hand from soul, or a set order from soul into hand. So the second ability is never going to happen at all, because you don't play any other set orders. And the first one, worst case scenario, you can potentially grab Persona Ride back from soul. Yeah, so I'd probably only want to play it if I had either the grade 2 from Ride deck at very least still in the soul, so I can at least grab something. But at the same time, you don't have to grab, you can just use it to get soul if you need to. He doesn't get power though. But like, you have more choice in what you put into soul, so you don't have to worry about as much like soul charging shit you want. And go over triggers for triggers. Then we've got just recyclers, which are mostly just be able to cycle, draw your cards, essentially replacing your discards from Ride. They technically do other things, but it's a bit like, doesn't really matter. That essentially there's better cards to play most of the time. But then we've got this boy. He's part of this cycle we got in BT5, where the cost is put 2 cards from either soul or drop from your Ride deck into your Ride deck face up. So you can do it twice. So your maximum amount of times you can do this is twice. But then you look at top 7 for a grade 3 or greater card, specifically card, not unit, with a different name from your Vanguard. You're to put in hand. So you can use it to find your dragons and your distorted bones. That event, it has some conditions to get more guard, more shield when put on guard circle, which you won't always meet the conditions. But yeah, that you mostly play for the first ability. Okay, so next up we have this unit, which is another grade 1. When placed in rear guard, you have a Liael, grade 3 credit Liael rather. Counterblast 1 for 5 cards you deck, choose after 1 grade 3 or less card for a moment, call into rear guard, shuffle a deck. I do like this as a more, you dig deeper for stuff you need compared to like drawing cards off a Colossus. And technically it can select your distorted veins. They'll just get placed to a rear guard and then go straight into your drop. Which if you want one in your drop, is not a bad idea. Like, it gives you a few options. So I think for Counterblast, this is what I'd want to spend most of my Counterblast on. Except for the two or three you need for your Anarchist Dragons. And then we have the final non-PG card is basically it's Avarice Rester. So when you place from hand, if you have not played an order this turn, discard a card from hand, search your deck for up to one order without regardless page, discard it, and then you can play it from drop for a turn. So essentially it's your extra copies of your Distorted Bones. I currently only have 2 Avarice Resters. I'd consider getting more. But so far I think I haven't had too much trouble finding my Distorted Bones and Resters. So I probably wouldn't go to 4. I might go to just 3 if I do get another one, but I'm not too worried about getting them. And I do have just 3 PGs, and then I've got the Energy Crest, the non-Energy Crest, Syncitude. So yeah, that's basically all the cards I currently have in the deck. Obviously changes I do want to make. I want to get a 4th dragon. I definitely want to get probably at least 1 more cycler. Even I think 4 would probably actually be fine, but probably just get 1 more just in case. There's 3 slots. Ideally I'd probably want to get more of these 2, but I don't really have. That'll probably be way too expensive for the grand scheme of things. Trouble is everything gets really expensive. And then a few sort of interesting things I've sort of figured out when playing with a deck. So obviously the turn when you're about to activate your Divine Skill can be quite awkward, as it's a at the end of battle skill, so essentially your other rear guards have to attack first. Because normally you'd attack one rear guard, attack with your Vanguard, bind that rear or engage that rear guard you just attacked with previously, and then all your extra trigger effects, worst case scenario, can go on your final rear guard to attack, right? And in that, your actual turn going into your Divine Skill, you have to attack your rear guards first, so any triggers are sort of in a way lost. If you have more Anarchist Dragons in your hand, you can actually choose to be a bit more conservative with your Counterblast use and actually just not bind them and bind something completely different. The reason why I state if you have them in hand, that way if for some reason they do retire it, you still have 1 to grab out. Another thing is when you do have your Divine Skill turn, your Vanguard is only base power. You don't get your Persona Rides or anything like that. So there's basically 2 options there. One is you have a booster to boost her with, or what I like to do is you either have a Distorted Bane in your hand, which you bind when you attack, or you have one in your drop, and when you call out your Anachronous Dragon, you bind it off that effect. So that way your Vanguard's attacking at least 23, rather than just 13. And I think attacking wise, I think for your Divine Skill turn, at this point you're trying to finish your game, you do probably want to bind something either from hand or one of your non-attacking rear guards and do your Vanguard attack first. And obviously we're getting some more support for stuff as well in later sets, so later on in the year there's going to be a bunch more support. But yeah, so this is basically what we got right now. Currently I don't mind it too much. I do quite like the deck. There's definitely some things I want to improve on it, but generally I'm happy with my current fairly budget. I can't afford to get more stuff for a deck, so yeah. But yeah, thank you for coming everyone, and I will see you all next week for another Vanguard video on something I'll figure out sometime during the week.